Think that's music to Graham Motion's ears?
Sounds good to me. I'm sure it sounds good to him, too.
Well, he's on the phone and joins us live here on Grandstand. Graham Motion, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, good, Lafitte. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. And you have to level with us. Did you really think you had a shot to take down the likes of Midday with shared account going into last Friday's Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf?
Yeah, I mean, I felt pretty comfortable that I fitted with the American horses. I really wasn't sure that she was up to handling the European horses, but I genuinely felt like we belonged in the race, stacking up against the American horses.
Graham, she ran very well against Proviso, so I don't think that she was outclassed at all. It was just a matter of getting the kind of trip that you got, and she was very brave in her victory.
Yeah, I mean, Edgar and I really talked a lot about it, and we felt that absolutely she had to get covered up. And if you notice, kind of going into the first turn, he just had to really take a hold of her because it got a little tight, and it might have been the best thing that happened. And then she just had a great trip. I mean, I can't say enough about the ride Edgar gave her. I think it made all the difference in the end.
So during the course of the stretch drive, when you saw Midday come to shared account, were you confident inside that what seemed like a very long, from the 16th pole home, that shared account was going to be able to hold off and take down the defending champ?
No way. I mean, I was watching on the apron, so I was watching on the television in the infield, so it was a little bit hard to get a handle on where we were at. I could tell when we turned for home that we were in with a shot, and then I thought we crossed the wire in front, and then I started doubting myself because you just don't expect to win those kind of races, and it was some thrill, I tell you.
So what becomes now of shared account? Where will we see her, and what does her future lie?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine we'll have a very similar plan as this year. I'm pretty sure I've talked to Kevin and Tom, the farm manager. They're going to keep her in training next year, which is great. So we'll probably have a very similar plan. I won't want to start it too early on in the year with the idea of getting into the Breeders' Cup in November.
You've done this before. Back in '04, Kitten's Joy was the big favorite for the Breeders' Cup Turf. You upset him with Better Talk Now. How would you compare the two victories in terms of how you felt after those big upset wins in these monumental Breeders' Cup races?
Yeah, it's right up there with it. I mean, we really point for these races. I think they really are championship races, and to me, it's just such a thrill. To get there in the first place, and when you kind of set yourself a goal and you're able to achieve that goal throughout the year, it's very rewarding. It's very exhilarating, I got to say.
Speaking of rewarding and being rewarded, I guess you're going to have some new horses in your stable. Team Valor and Barry Irwin deciding to make you the primary trainer for the stable, and I can tell you from experience, you're going to enjoy that because there's some nice horse flesh that you'll be getting. Talk about that situation and how it impacts your year from next year and on.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Just to have two Breeders' Cup winners in the barn right off the bat, that's exciting in itself. We've had a fun year with a couple of the Team Valor horses this year with Gypsy Warning. She's going to come out and run in the Matriarch next week. And I'm really excited, and Barry's quite keen on pursuing perhaps taking Pluck to Ireland to run in the 2000 Guineas, and that's something I've always wanted to do. It's been a goal of mine to take a horse to Europe and compete in their races. So it's a really exciting prospect. As you well know, there's some really nice horses, and it's exciting to have them in the barn.
And Pluck could be that caliber of a colt as a developing prospect, Graham. 2-year-olds normally don't win million-dollar races when they break the way Pluck did, when you have to dodge fallen horses, lose ground, and come from as far back as he had to. Pluck was amongst the most impressive winners on the entire two-day Breeders' Cup program.
Yeah, I actually said to somebody today, I've got to go back and watch that race. I've only seen it the one time, and I thought it was phenomenal that he was able to get up. I really need to go back and watch that race because it was a remarkable race.
Graham, you train out of Fair Hill, and I know that Team Valor and Barry would like to have their horses under one roof. And talk about the advantages of training off-site as you do with many of the horses. I've personally never been to Fair Hill, but from what I understand, it's a great place to train.
Yeah, I think it's just a question of being able to get out of such a routine that you get into the racetrack. There's so much more that we can do here. I mean, my horses, after they run, they might not see the racetrack for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks even, some of them. We just have so many more options, and now we have the Tapeta that Michael Dickinson put in, which I think, I've been really happy with it. I'm so disappointed that the synthetics haven't worked out so well in other parts of the country, because to me this is a phenomenal training surface, and I just think it's, in the long run, it really helps the horses. So between having the option of not going to the track, training on the grass and the synthetic, and also having a dirt track, we just have a lot of options here.
Just a high-class, gorgeous facility at Fair Hill where Graham Motion will have his horses specifically for Team Valor. But for the time being, Graham, you have 2 tomorrow in the Long Island at Aqueduct. Your thoughts on Deveron and Clarinet going into tomorrow's feature race at Aqueduct?
Yeah, I think if Eddie Castro can get Deveron covered up like he did last time, she certainly should be there in the outcome. It's going to be a little bit tougher going 1.5 miles. There's going to be a lack of pace, I'm sure, and she wants to be headstrong, and he's done a great job when he's ridden her and getting her tucked in and covered up. So that's going to be the key to the race. And I think Clarinet's an up-and-comer. We're throwing her in the deep end a little bit, but looking at her PPs for a 3-year-old, she's very consistent. She really handled 1.5 miles well last time, and I'd like to think that she's got a chance to get a piece of it.
We're watching Deveron win in New York right now, and this is a mare that Christophe Lemon had, and she seemed to be getting very keen on Christophe. And what have you done now to get her to switch off and relax better?
Well, I think the idea, Barry's idea, was nothing against Christophe, but just to get her off the track. I think she's really responded well. She's one, actually, that we don't take to the track. We have a pretty big grass gallop behind my barn here, and she gallops out there and is a lot more manageable. She also gets turned out every day, which is something we do with all the horses here, including shared account. Most of the horses I train get turned out in a paddock or a round pen before they train, which I think is a big help, particularly with a filly like Deveron.
Yeah, where Deveron doesn't have the experience going the 12 furlongs, Graham, Clarinet does. We're going to look at her last win at Keeneland. That was at the 1.5 mile distance, and arguably the best performance of her career thus far.
Yeah, this was a gutsy performance. I was a little worried. Johnny had her pretty close to the pace. There wasn't much speed in the race, but she really dug in there. And when the Pin-Oak filly came to her on the outside, I thought she was very game to hang on. I thought it was a very good effort.
Do you train horses any differently? What's the biggest difference when you're trying to get a horse ready for a 1.5 mile race as opposed to something more conventional and shorter distance races?
They got to relax. I mean, it's all about getting them to relax. You can't have a horse go 1.5 miles, 1.3 miles when they're just a bundle of nerves. So that's something that I try to get into their training, and it's something I do with all my horses. It's something I learned from working for Jonathan Shepard, which his whole program was designed around, getting the horses to settle.
Graham, you are picking up the 40 or so horses from Team Valor. I know that's going to be over a period of time. You also have your own, public stable. So how many horses now will you have, and where will you be as the winter approaches? Actually,
numbers-wise, I'm going to stay very similar to what I have now. I always lease a barn myself for the 2-year-olds when they come in, and this is something that Barry and I have talked about. His barn is a little bit bigger probably than they'll need for the horses they have coming in, so that'll give me the option to have a few of the stalls. So we're going to keep the numbers very similar. I'm going to be at Fair Hill. Fair Hill's my base. I live about 1 mile from Fair Hill, so it's something I feel strongly about and being around here. It's a little bit like training in Europe in as much as every time you race, you have to ship, so I don't get to the races as much as perhaps I'd like to, but I really enjoy the training, and I can always watch them run on television.
And hopefully on HRTV. And I bet you have every condition book on your desk for Atlantic Seaboard. You got a lot of options back there now. You can go to different places, which I guess is an advantage of training on a training center. You're not beholden to anybody. You go where you want to go. I do. I actually have a guy full-time that reads condition books, looks for extra races. So many tracks now are run riding a lot of extra races every day, so it's almost a full-time job keeping up with the stakes nominations and kind of handicapping that. So
John Panagot, he oversees that for me, and he has a fistful of condition books.
Well, he's going to be a busy man, and if a horse runs poorly in a certain spot, you can always blame him, Graham.
Exactly, exactly.
Thanks so much for the time. Best of luck with the Team Valor horses, and congratulations again on your big upset win with Shared Account in the Breeders' Cup.
Terrific. Thanks, guys.
All right, Graham. Graham Motion joining us on a grandstand now. He doesn't have the pressure that Bill Mott does in the race tomorrow at Aqueduct, the Long Island.
Yeah, that's
Bill
pressure.
Mott, that's pressure. Has
That
the
is
Papa
pressure.
John's pick of the week. We spoke with Mott yesterday, and this Papa John selection is Changing Skies. So Mott, with Changing Skies, the even money favorite on the morning line, and of course Motion has two. We just discussed Clarinet and Deveron with him.
But Mott only has to hit the board with Changing Skies.
True.
If he finishes third, our pizza fans are still going to be happy. Maybe those who take the even money or less won't be, but we'll be happy. But Changing Skies, clearly the one to beat. Her race in the Flower Bowl was terrific.
This is the Flower Bowl, and again, Shared Account exited this race to win the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf. Flower Bowl producing 3 of the last 4 winners of that particular event. So Changing Skies exiting this race and will be the heavily backed favorite in the Long Island 54th running tomorrow at the Big A.
That's Ave between horses who's going to beat her with Red Desire finishing third. So outstanding race. The Flower Bowl, a grade 1 race, and Changing Skies will be hard to beat.
Red Desire hung a little bit late in the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf. I was expecting more from her.
She was a little bit disappointing, but she's still a high-class mare, and I would not be surprised to see her in Dubai next spring, where she was last year.
Our thanks to Graham Motion for joining us this afternoon on Grandstand.
By the way, that's got to be a life. I mean, you live next to a beautiful training center. You don't
Bear Hill's amazing.
Right. You don't have to travel. You send the horses, and you have, traveling lads who go with them, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good setup there. Plus, training at Fair Hill, you're not under the pressure of you take, you train longer. You can turn them out. You can do whatever you want, and I'm surprised that more and of course Mike Matz is down there too. So I'm surprised that more trainers don't take advantage of that, and maybe they could if there were more room for horses.
I thought it was interesting you brought up there is my mic fell, Jeff, and I blame you. That they have an employee whose sole job is to deal with all the condition books. And it's understandable. Like you said, there's so many tracks in that concentrated area of the Northeast that I would imagine it gets very complicated trying to figure out who to run, where, and when.
I've got 7 horses at Turf Paradise, and it takes me 2 days to figure out where they're going to run. And that's seven horses. And 2 of them are maidens, so I don't really have much choice there, So I can't imagine what might happen with 40 horses and 10 different tracks. That is a full-time job.
Graham Motion, and as you look at this post parade for the 5th at Golden Gate, how good do you think Pluck can be? Because I was blown away by his win.
I emailed Barry after the race.
And I got blown out of my pick for it.
I emailed Barry after the race and said, you just found your next star at Cozine, who was, by the way, a maiden $50,000 claimer as late as his January of his 3-year-old season.
Star Cozine was.
Yeah, so
wow.
Pluck's got a little bit of a head start on him, and for him to do what he did was just spectacular. And it's not that far-fetched to train a horse and go over and run in the Guineas. I can tell you a lot of American-based 3-year-olds who instead have their sights set on the Triple Crown would have been far better served to do the same thing and point for either the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket or the Curragh, because a mile turf is a unique distance, and we've got some nice horses who I think would fit there. And Pluck would be one of them.
All right, we'll continue this conversation when we come back. More from Golden Gate, 9 minutes out until the 5th. Stay tuned.